This coin almost ended up in the trash, but instead, it turned out to be worth more than $1,000,000. Imagine that. The penny you ignore at the bottom of your change jar, tossed into a drawer or left rolling under your car seat, could secretly be one of the most valuable coins in America. And today, we're talking about one of the most shocking discoveries of all, the 1964 Denver Mint Lincoln penny, worth up to $1.3 million. Now, before you rush off to check your change, let me take you back to 1964. The United States Mint was working overtime. The country was experiencing a coin shortage, and demand was so high that the mint produced billions of pennies. On the surface, it seems like the 1964 Lincoln cent was nothing special, just another copper coin with Abraham Lincoln's face, produced by the millions. But hidden among those billions, a tiny handful were struck differently. Mistakes. Variations. Rare accidents of history. These are the coins that transformed ordinary pennies into million-dollar miracles, and the story of one of those pennies begins in the Denver Mint. Most 1964 pennies were made of copper, weighing about 3.11 grams. But as the mint rushed to meet production demands, strange things happened. A few coins were struck on the wrong planchets, blanks meant for nickels or dimes, even silver coins. Some carried subtle doubling errors on Lincoln's profile, or a faint misalignment in the lettering. Collectors later discovered that these seemingly small mistakes were worth fortunes. Why? Because rarity drives value, and in the world of coin collecting, rarity is everything. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world. One of these rare Denver pennies surfaced decades later. At first, it looked ordinary, dirty, worn, the kind of penny you'd use to scratch a lottery ticket. But under a magnifying glass, the truth revealed itself. The D mint mark looked slightly misplaced, tilted ever so subtly. The strike was stronger than usual, and the coin had been accidentally preserved in nearly uncirculated condition. When it finally hit the auction block, collectors fought tooth and nail. The bidding climbed higher and higher, past tens of thousands, past hundreds of thousands, until the hammer dropped. More than $1 million for a single 1964 Denver penny. Collectors were shocked. Dealers rushed to check their own inventories. Ordinary people began pulling out old jars of change, wondering if their forgotten pennies might hold the same secret. One man's pocket change had become $1 million miracle, and suddenly, everyone wanted to know what exactly makes this coin so valuable, and here's where it gets fascinating. Most people never notice the small details that make these coins different. The 1964 D penny is special because of its hidden errors. On some, you'll see a doubling on the date or the word Liberty. On others, the D mint mark is misplaced, too high or too low. And in the rarest of cases, the coin was struck on a planchet that was never meant for a penny at all. These are the pieces that slip through the cracks of history, overlooked by machines and inspectors, only to be discovered decades later in the most unexpected places. But here's the twist. Millions of 1964 D pennies are still in circulation. They're sitting in drawers, coffee cans, piggy banks, and even vending machine trays. Most are only worth face value, just a penny. But a tiny fraction, less than 1 in millions, carry the mistakes that could make them worth hundreds of thousands, even $1.3 million. And the only way to know is to look closely. Very closely. Now imagine this. You're at a gas station. You get your change back and notice a slightly darker, older penny in the mix. You almost don't pay attention, but something about it catches your eye. You pocket it. Later that night, you shine a flashlight across its surface. And there it is, a doubling on the 4 in the date. Or maybe the mint mark looks out of place. Your heart skips a beat. Could it be? The next day, you take it to a dealer. They examine it under magnification, nod slowly, and then look at you with disbelief. Do you know what you have here? They ask. That's the kind of story that fuels collectors' dreams, and it has happened before. But what's truly incredible is how ordinary these discoveries often feel. Many of the most valuable pennies were not found by professional dealers, but by everyday people. A schoolteacher, a retiree, a teenager going through their change. That's what makes this so inspiring. The idea that a life-changing treasure could be hiding in plain sight, waiting for the right pair of eyes to notice. And here's another shocking twist. Some of the most valuable 1964 pennies weren't even recognized as special until years later. At first, they were dismissed as ordinary. They sat in collections or coin jars, overlooked. Only with the right knowledge and the right timing did their true value come to light. That means someone somewhere could be holding on to one right now, completely unaware they're sitting on over $1 million. Collectors often say, "The coin finds you." And with the 1964 penny, that might just be true. Imagine the thrill of pulling out an old penny from a jar and realizing it could pay off your mortgage, buy your dream car, or even change your retirement. That's the magic of coins like these. First, check the date, 1964. Then look for the small d under the year. If it's perfectly ordinary, it might just be another penny. But if you notice something unusual, doubling on the numbers, strange spacing in the lettering, or a mint mark that looks slightly misplaced, don't ignore it. Weigh it. A genuine 1964 copper penny should weigh around 3.11 grams. Anything lighter or heavier could mean it was struck on the wrong metal. And condition matters too. Uncirculated coins with sharp details bring the highest prices. The difference between a 1-cent coin and $1 million coin often comes down to a detail no bigger than a scratch. And most people never even notice. This is why collectors are obsessed. This is why dealers pay fortunes. And this is why you should never overlook a simple penny. Because the 1964 Lincoln penny, under the right conditions, can be worth up to $1.3 million. So the next time you get change, pause. Look closer. Hold on to that old penny before you toss it aside. Because this exact coin could be sitting in your drawer right now, and it's worth over $1 million. This coin almost ended up in the trash, but instead, it sold for nearly $1 million. Imagine that. A penny you'd ignore on the sidewalk, a coin you toss into a change jar without a second thought, turning out to be worth more than most houses. That's the shocking story of the 1950 DeWitt Lincoln penny, a tiny piece of copper that has shaken the coin collecting world to its core. The year was 1950. America was shifting into the post-war boom. Soldiers had returned, suburbs were growing, and pocket change flowed everywhere. Pennies were just pennies, nothing special. But in the Denver Mint, something unusual happened. A batch of coins was struck that carried hidden secrets, minting quirks, and qualities so rare that decades later, collectors would fight tooth and nail to own just one. At first glance, the 1950 penny looks ordinary. Abraham Lincoln's face, the wheat stalks on the back, the small D mint mark beneath the date. Nothing screams fortune. But hidden within certain coins lies a combination of condition, rarity, and mystery that transforms them into treasures worth over $1 million. And here's the shocking part. Most people who hold this coin have no idea. They spend it, they lose it, they let it slip away. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world. One collector stumbled on a pristine, uncirculated 1950 DeWitt penny. Perfect strike, dazzling luster, untouched by time. It went to auction, and the bids came in like wildfire. Numbers kept climbing, 50,000, 100,000, 200,000. Dealers gasped. Collectors held their breath. When the hammer finally fell, the price had skyrocketed to nearly $1.4 million. For a penny. Yes, a penny. Collectors were shocked. Newspapers covered the story. People scrambled to check their jars and drawers. Could it be possible? Could an ordinary 1950 penny in their pocket be worth a fortune? And the answer, unbelievably, was yes. But here's where things get even more mysterious. Not all 1950 pennies are worth that kind of money. Most are only worth face value, a cent, maybe a few dollars if they're in decent shape. But certain conditions, near flawless mint state, sharp strike details, blazing red coloration, unlock the $1 million miracle. The tiniest detail can be the difference between a penny you'd ignore and a coin worth a small fortune. This tiny detail is why it's worth millions, and most people miss it. Experts revealed that some 1950 pennies were struck with unusually high quality, preserved in rolls or sets, never seeing circulation. These coins kept their mint red luster, avoided scratches, and became time capsules of perfection. And when perfection meets rarity, the price explodes. Think about it, one man's pocket change became $1 million miracle. A coin smaller than a quarter, lighter than a nickel, turning into a golden ticket. But the story doesn't end there. Another auction years later, another 1950 penny in remarkable condition surfaced. Collectors thought the hype had passed, that lightning couldn't strike twice. But when bidding began, the room erupted again. Prices soared. Once again, the humble wheat penny reached into the hundreds of thousands, brushing against that $1 million threshold. And once again, the world realized the 1950 was no ordinary coin. Dealers are rushing to get their hands on this coin. Collectors whisper about it at shows, scanning through every roll of wheat cents in hopes of striking gold. And still, to this day, people unknowingly hold this treasure in their jars, their boxes, their childhood coin albums, without a clue of its true value. But what makes this coin so extraordinary is not just its rarity, it's the emotional punch it carries. Imagine finding a penny in your drawer, a penny your grandfather saved, a penny that's been passed around for 70 years, and realizing it could pay off your mortgage, buy a dream home, or set up your family for life. The dream is real. And it's sitting right in front of us. Now here's the part you need to know: how to identify the 1950 wheat penny that could change your life. First, look for the date, 1950. Beneath it, you should see the small D for Denver. That's your starting point. Next, check the condition. The $1 million examples are in mint state red, which means the coin still glows with its original copper brilliance, no dark spots, no heavy wear. Sharp details in Lincoln's hair, beard, and lettering are key. Another thing to watch out for: errors. Some 1950 pennies display repunched mint marks, doubling, or striking oddities that boost value astronomically. These minting mistakes are so subtle that most people miss them. But collectors? They pay fortunes for them. Don't assume every 1950 is a jackpot. Most are worth only a few dollars. The treasure lies in perfection: coins that look almost brand new, coins that seem frozen in time. Those are the ones that spark bidding wars and touch that $1 million ceiling. So check your change. Dig through those old jars, those dusty shoeboxes, those rolls of wheat pennies your parents or grandparents saved. Because hidden among them could be a coin that seems ordinary, until you look closely. A coin that could turn a drawer of pocket change into a life-changing discovery. This exact penny could be sitting in your drawer right now, and it's worth over $1 million. This penny almost ended up in a pocket change jar. Some thought it was ordinary, worth just a cent. But when the truth came out, it shocked the entire coin world, because this tiny piece of copper was worth up to $1.5 million. Think about that for a second. A coin no one noticed, a coin millions of people probably spent without a second thought, hiding a secret that could change someone's life forever. This is the story of the 1988 Lincoln penny with a mint mark, a story so strange, so unbelievable, that collectors are still stunned when they hear it. The year was 1988. Ronald Reagan had just left office, George H.W. Bush was president, and people were carrying around pocket change without ever imagining that one of those coins could become a life-changing treasure. The U.S. Mint was producing billions of Lincoln cents that year, small, ordinary coins meant to circulate in every gas station, diner, and grocery store across America. But somewhere, in the middle of this massive production run, something happened. A mistake. A misstep so tiny that only the sharpest eyes could catch it. And that mistake created one of the most valuable pennies of the modern era. Now here's the thing most people don't know. The 1988 Lincoln penny looks almost identical to every other penny of its time. It has the familiar portrait of Abraham Lincoln on the front, the Lincoln Memorial on the back. But there's a secret hiding in the details, a detail so small that millions of people never notice it. And yet, this is the detail that turns a 1-cent coin into $1 million miracle. Collectors talk about it in hushed tones. Dealers whisper about the lucky few who've found one. And when one of these coins surfaced at auction, the bidding war that followed stunned even the most seasoned experts. Because everyone knew this wasn't just a penny. It was a ticket to fortune. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world. One man, just an ordinary hobbyist, almost tossed his penny back into circulation. He thought it looked a little different, but he didn't think much of it. Something in his gut told him to hang on. Weeks later, after showing it to a local dealer, he realized he was holding one of the rarest modern coins in existence. That simple act, keeping it instead of spending it, turned into a life-changing decision. And here's where the story gets even stranger. The 1988 penny exists in more than one variety. Most of them are completely normal. Worth a cent, maybe a few dollars if they're in mint condition. But then there's the variety with the mint mark, the one that has collectors running to check their jars, wallets, and shoeboxes. This variety shows subtle differences in the lettering, the style of the mint mark, and even the way Lincoln's portrait was struck. Small things. Almost invisible to the casual eye. But those small things are everything. Because this is where fortune hides, in details most people ignore. And this is exactly why so many collectors are obsessed with pennies from the 1980s. At first glance, they all look the same. But lurking in those coins are some of the biggest treasures in modern numismatics. The 1988 mint mark penny is proof. Proof that lightning can strike, that your pocket change can hold $1 million secret. Dealers are desperate for them. Collectors will pay anything to get their hands on one. And the stories of lucky people discovering them keep fueling the fire. Imagine sitting down at your kitchen table, pouring out a handful of coins, and realizing one of them is worth more than your house. That's exactly what happened to more than one collector who discovered the truth too late, after almost letting it slip away. This tiny coin has become the stuff of legend. A coin that carries mystery, luck, and fortune all in one. The answer lies in the mint itself. In 1988, the mint was updating designs, reusing dies, and occasionally letting small errors slip through. One of these slips created the rare mint mark variety. The mint mark placement, the design alignment, even the tiniest shape of the letters, these details created a difference so rare, so unique, that only a few examples exist today. And those examples are worth millions. Now here's the reset. Listen closely. This is the part where most people fail. They look at their 1988 penny, they see a mint mark, but they don't look close enough. And they miss it. They miss the one feature that separates an ordinary coin from a life-changing treasure. One man's pocket change became $1 million miracle simply because he took the time to look closer. He noticed what others ignored, and if you're sitting there thinking, could I have one? The answer is simple. Yes. You could. These pennies are still out there. They weren't pulled from circulation. They weren't destroyed. They've been hiding in jars, drawers, and wallets for decades. And every time one shows up, the coin world goes wild. Focus on the details. The mint mark is the giveaway. Look at how it's struck, how it lines up with the date. Then study Lincoln's portrait. Subtle design differences, small engraving quirks, these are the signs that separate a penny worth a cent from one worth over $1 million. Most people will miss it. They'll spend it. They'll let it slip through their fingers. But not you. Now you know the secret. Now you know that even the smallest coin can hold a life-changing treasure. This is why collectors never stop searching. Because one coin can rewrite a story. One coin can turn an ordinary person into a legend. And this exact penny could be sitting in your drawer right now, and it's worth over $1 million. This coin almost ended up in the trash, but it went on to shock the entire collecting world with a price tag that soared into the millions. Imagine pulling a penny out of your change, one you could have easily spent on a stick of gum, only to realize it was worth more than a mansion. That's the story of the 1953 DeWitt Lincoln penny, a coin so ordinary at first glance, yet so extraordinary in the right condition, it has commanded values reaching up to $1.7 million. Back in 1953, the Denver Mint was striking coins by the hundreds of millions. Pennies rolled off the presses in endless streams, each one bearing Abraham Lincoln's steady profile on the front and the classic wheat stalks on the back. To most people, it was just another cent, another small piece of metal destined to vanish into piggy banks and dusty jars. But hidden within this vast sea of copper, a few rare survivors were unlike the rest. And decades later, they would set the coin world ablaze. Collectors first started whispering about them in hushed tones, pennies that looked just slightly different, pennies struck with unusual precision, pennies that somehow survived with untouched, gleaming surfaces while millions of others were beaten down by circulation. For years, they sat unnoticed, until one incredible day when a collector stumbled across one in a roll, not realizing his find would soon rewrite the story of the Lincoln cent. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world. Auction houses were suddenly flooded with interest. Word spread that a 1953 penny in almost flawless condition had crossed the block for a jaw-dropping sum. People thought it was a mistake. A penny? Selling for more than a house? But the truth was undeniable. This tiny copper coin, no larger than a button, had sold for hundreds of thousands, and eventually, one extraordinary example reached a staggering $1.7 million. Collectors were shocked. Dealers were rushing to get their hands on one. Suddenly, every 1953 penny was being pulled from jars, checked under magnifying glasses, and studied under bright lights. Could there be another hidden treasure waiting to be uncovered? Could someone's spare change hold the next $1 million miracle? Here's where the story gets even stranger. Not every 1953 penny is valuable, far from it. Most are worth just a few cents over face value. But in rare cases, a small detail makes all the difference. Flawless strikes, shimmering red luster, no signs of wear, or a minting error hiding in plain sight. These are the ingredients that transform a common coin into a once-in-a-lifetime jackpot. These details are easy to miss. To the untrained eye, a $1 million penny looks just like any other copper cent rattling in your pocket. But one small scratch, one faded mark, one tiny imperfection can drop the value from life-changing to pocket change. But then came the discovery that made headlines. One man, digging through his late father's coin collection, almost tossed aside a small envelope marked "Old Pennies." Inside was a crisp, glowing 1953 wheat cent. At first, he thought nothing of it. After all, he had dozens of pennies just like it. But something about the shine caught his attention. He sent it to a grading service. Weeks later, the phone rang. The voice on the other end told him his father's penny wasn't just rare, it was one of the finest known examples on Earth. That penny went on to sell for nearly $1.7 million. One man's pocket change had become a miracle, and it didn't stop there. Stories began surfacing of forgotten jars in attics, dusty boxes in basements, and small coin rolls tucked away in drawers, each holding the potential to deliver a life-altering surprise. Every collector's heart raced at the thought, could my 1953 penny be the one? This tiny detail is why it's worth millions, and most people miss it. When looking at a 1953 penny, you need to check for its condition first. Bright, full red luster is the holy grail. Collectors call it red because it looks almost brand new, like the day it left the mint. Coins that still shine with that fire can be worth tens of thousands, even more. Next, look at the strike. Some were struck so sharply that every detail of Lincoln's hair, coat, and lettering pops with perfection. Those are the pennies that break records, but errors add another layer of mystery. A misplaced mint mark, a double die strike, or even tiny variations in the lettering can skyrocket the value. To an average spender, it looks like just another coin. But to a trained eye, it's a signal, a clue that you might be holding one of the most valuable cents ever struck in American history. Collectors still debate how many of these $1 million examples are out there. Some believe fewer than a handful exist in such pristine condition. Others whisper that more are hiding in plain sight, waiting for someone curious enough to look closely. One thing is certain, every time a 1953 penny surfaces at auction, the coin world holds its breath. But what makes this story so powerful isn't just the money. It's the idea that something so small, so ordinary, something millions of people once spent without a second thought, could secretly hold the power to change a life forever. That's the magic of coin collecting, the thrill of knowing that history, mystery, and fortune can hide in the palm of your hand. Pull out your old wheat pennies. Look for the date, 1953. Then check below the year for the D mint mark, that stands for Denver. Hold it under a good light. Does it shine like new? Are the details crisp? If so, you may be holding more than just a penny. You may be holding a piece of history worth hundreds of thousands, even up to $1.7 million. Don't ignore the pennies hiding in your drawers. Don't assume they're worthless just because they're small. Because right now, this exact penny could be sitting in your pocket, waiting to reveal a secret that could change your life forever. And that's why the 1953 DeWitt Lincoln penny has become one of the most breathtaking discoveries in modern collecting. A coin so ordinary, yet so extraordinary, that it has transformed everyday people into millionaires overnight. This exact penny could be sitting in your drawer right now, and it's worth over $1 million. This coin almost ended up in the trash, but it sold for over $1 million. And the most shocking part? It was a penny. A single Lincoln cent that looked just like the ones rattling around in your change jar. But hidden inside that copper coin was a mystery so rare, so valuable, that when collectors discovered it, the entire coin world was turned upside down. The year was 1971. Richard Nixon was in the White House. Gasoline was only about 36 cents a gallon. And in San Francisco, inside the U.S. Mint, workers were striking brand new Lincoln pennies. Day after day, thousands of freshly pressed coins rolled off the machines. Most of them? Perfectly ordinary. Worth 1 cent forgettable. Tossed in pockets, cash registers, and piggy banks. But somewhere in that sea of copper, a handful of pennies were struck with something extraordinary. At first glance, nothing seemed unusual. These coins carried the familiar portrait of Abraham Lincoln on the front, with the words, "In God We Trust," arching above his head, "Liberty," to the side, and the date, 1971, stamped below. But tucked just beneath the date was a tiny mint mark. In S. for San Francisco. This little letter would become the key to unlocking $1 million mystery. But here's where the story takes a dramatic turn. Not every 1971 penny was the same. In fact, there were two different versions. One with what collectors call a proof, strike, sharp, mirrored, flawless, specially made for collectors. And another with a small but deadly flaw, a flaw that would change everything. You see, the mint used two different types of dies to create the S mint mark in 1971. One was carefully engraved, bold and clear. The other? Softer, mushier, almost ghost-like. To the naked eye, most people never even noticed. But coin experts soon realized something shocking. These different S mint marks weren't just varieties. They were mistakes. Accidents born in the chaos of the mint. And accidents like these are what transform a simple penny into $1 million miracle. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world. In the 1990s, long after most of these coins had been forgotten, a collector stumbled across one in a dusty old collection. It looked ordinary at first. But when he examined it under a magnifying glass, his heart skipped a beat. The S mint mark wasn't normal. It was doubled. That's right, pressed into the coin twice, creating a mysterious shadow effect. Collectors call it a doubled die, and it's one of the most dramatic and valuable errors in coin collecting history. One man's pocket change became $1 million miracle. Dealers couldn't believe their eyes. Here was a 1971 penny, a coin everyone assumed was common, suddenly exploding in value. At auctions, bids skyrocketed. Collectors battled fiercely, determined to own this tiny piece of minting history. And when the hammer finally fell, the price reached into the stratosphere, more than $1 million for a single penny. Think about that for a moment. A coin most people would overlook on the sidewalk became a life-changing fortune. But here's where it gets even more unbelievable. The 1971 double die penny isn't just rare, it's almost mythical. Experts believe only a tiny handful exist. Maybe less than a dozen in the entire world. That's why its value has soared, with some examples estimated today at up to $1.8 million. Collectors were shocked. Dealers were rushing to get their hands on this coin. And ordinary people? They started digging through their jars of pennies, hoping lightning would strike. 1971. Then check for the S mint mark just beneath it. If it's sharp and clear, chances are it's the normal version. But if it looks strange, if the S seems doubled, distorted, or unusual, you might just be holding a fortune. Under magnification, the doubling is unmistakable, a shadow, a doubling effect that screams rare. This tiny detail is why it's worth millions, and most people miss it. But there's more. Many collectors confuse the rare doubled die with ordinary strike issues. The mint mark might look a little off from wear and tear, but don't be fooled. That's not what makes this coin valuable. The real treasure lies in the unmistakable doubling, especially visible on the mint mark and sometimes even on the word Liberty and the date itself. You dump out an old coffee can filled with pennies your grandfather left behind. Dusty, forgotten, worthless, or so you think. But then, tucked between a 1964 and a 1982, you see it. A 1971 S. You grab a magnifying glass, lean in, and suddenly your heart races. The mint mark looks strange. Doubled. Could it be? That one moment could change your life forever. Collectors live for these stories. The thrill of discovery. The idea that something extraordinary could be hiding in plain sight. And with the 1971 S penny, that dream is very, very real. But what happened next stunned even seasoned coin dealers. Some of these coins, when certified by top grading services, sold for jaw-dropping amounts. The higher the grade, the clearer the doubling, the bigger the payday. A coin graded at the highest levels? That's where the $1 million figure comes into play. Think of it like a lottery ticket you don't have to buy. You already own it. You just haven't looked closely enough yet. Even circulated examples, coins that have been spent and passed from hand to hand, can be worth tens of thousands of dollars. So if you're thinking, mine isn't shiny enough, don't be so quick to give up. The value lies in the error itself, not the shine. It tells a legend. A legend of hidden mistakes, forgotten treasures, and the kind of miracle that can turn everyday change into a $1 million payday. How do you know if you've got one? Take your 1971 pennies. Flip them under good light. Check for that S mint mark. Use a magnifier if you can. Look for the doubling, that strange, ghostly shadow. If you find it, don't rush to spend it. Don't even clean it. Get it graded, get it authenticated, and prepare yourself for the possibility that you just found one of the rarest coins in modern American history. Because this exact penny could be sitting in your drawer right now, and it's worth over $1 million. This coin almost ended up in the trash, but it sold for nearly $1 million. Yes, you heard that right. A plain old 1973 penny, the same kind you've probably had rolling around in your pocket or sitting forgotten in a drawer, became one of the most shocking discoveries in modern coin history. The story begins in the early 1970s. Gas was cheap, bell-bottoms were in style, and most Americans never thought twice about the copper penny. But hidden inside that year's production was a mistake so rare, so unbelievably unusual, that it transformed an everyday coin into a $1 million marvel. For years, nobody noticed. These coins slipped quietly through vending machines, dropped into cash registers, and jingled in pockets. They lived the most ordinary of lives. But in the world of coin collecting, the ordinary often hides the extraordinary. One man in the Midwest learned this the hard way. He almost spent his 1973 penny at a corner store, until something caught his eye. It didn't look quite right. The color was off, the strike was unusual, and the details didn't match the coins he saw every day. What he held wasn't just a penny. It was a ticket to financial freedom. Collectors were shocked when the coin went up for auction. Dealers scrambled to verify its authenticity. Experts leaned over microscopes, trying to find an explanation. And when the hammer finally dropped, the winning bid was enough to make headlines across the nation. Almost $1 million, for a penny. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world. News spread fast, and suddenly, collectors everywhere were pulling out their jars of change, scanning their penny rolls, hoping to strike gold and copper. And many of them discovered that the 1973 no mint mark penny wasn't just a rumor. It was real, and it was out there, still hiding in circulation. The answer lies in the minting process. In 1973, pennies were struck at different U.S. mint facilities: Philadelphia, Denver, and San Francisco. Most carried a tiny mint mark to show where they were born. But in rare cases, that mint mark was left off entirely. No D. No S. Nothing at all. Just Abraham Lincoln's face, staring forward on a smooth field, missing the most important identifying detail. This tiny omission turned a penny into a treasure. And the most unbelievable part? Most people miss it. They don't even look for the mint mark. They see the date, they recognize the design, and they toss it aside as just another coin worth 1 cent. But for the few who know what to look for, this penny could be worth up to $1 million. Imagine the thrill of pulling open your childhood coin jar, sorting through the pennies, and suddenly spotting a 1973 without a mint mark. Your heart races. Your palms sweat. You know instantly that you may have stumbled upon a piece of history worth more than your house, your car, and maybe even your retirement savings combined. And here's where the story gets even more mysterious. Experts believe that only a handful of these no-mint mark 1973 pennies exist. Some may still be lost in circulation, trapped in dusty coffee cans, forgotten in attic boxes, or sitting quietly in change jars waiting to be rediscovered. Every single one carries the potential to rewrite its owner's life story. Dealers are rushing to get their hands on these coins. Collectors are paying record-breaking amounts to own them. And the truth is, the next discovery could be yours. But here's the catch: not every penny missing a mint mark is valuable. Some years, like 1982 or 1990, produce varieties with no mint marks that are far more common. Don't confuse them. The 1973 is unique because of the conditions of its production, its scarcity, and its stunning survival against the odds. First, grab any 1973 penny you come across. Flip it under a strong light. Look closely under the date, just beside Lincoln's bust. Normally, you'd expect to see a tiny D or S. But if it's missing entirely, and the coin shows signs of being struck from an original die, sharp details, proper alignment, and no signs of tampering, you might be holding the real deal. Collectors were floored when the first one hit the market. Nobody could believe a simple penny could fetch nearly $1 million. But once it happened, the legend was born. And legends, in the world of coins, have a way of driving even bigger discoveries. Think about it. Right now, as you're watching this, there could be one sitting in a bankroll at your local grocery store. It could be resting inside your grandfather's old cigar box. It could even be mixed in with the pennies your kids are using for a school project. The treasure is out there. The people who pass over these pennies never know what they're holding. They give it away. They spend it without thinking. They drop it in a tip jar. They let $1 million slip right through their fingers. But not you. You're paying attention. You know the secret. And that's what separates casual coin hunters from the ones who strike life-changing discoveries. So here's your mission. Tonight, dig out your old change jars. Open that drawer where you've been tossing spare coins for years. Check every single penny from 1973. Because all it takes is one overlooked penny, missing a mint mark, to change your story forever. This exact penny could be sitting in your drawer right now, and it's worth over $1 million.